Welcome to the Thunder and Lightning Show. Today I'm here with Ryan the Retrograde, and we wanted to talk about the SSPX. Now, recently, obviously, Church Militant has been attacking them ever since Easter, and they've continued that, and Voris and Niles have just really criticized the SSPX supporters, calling them Nazis, pedo-enablers, and so they continue that. Now, Lifesitenews has picked up on some SSPX stories, and they announced that they'd be running Anti-SSPX stories. And Church Militant attacked Catholic Family News. Now there's a big division here in sort of the conservative Catholic media of who supports SSPX and who doesn't. And on the supporters, there's Taylor Marshall, Catholic Family News like Matt Gasper's, I think, is it Return to Tradition YouTube channel? Yeah, he does some good stuff.
Remnant.
Yes. And one thing I wanted to point out was Lifesitenews. Their co-president, Steve Jalsevec, I think it's something like that, he's Opus Dei. Church Militant apparently receives funding from Opus Dei. Diane Montagna used to work for Lifesitenews,
Correct.
and she announced that she was leaving over editorial differences or something like that, which usually you don't say something like that. And now she works for the Remnant, which is definitely pro-SSPX.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's something that she was considering. But anyway, Ryan, what do you make of all of this?
Well, the first thing I thought was the Opus Dei angle, because we had examined that before. So immediately I Googled that this fellow who wrote that article on LifeSite that was contra SSPX. And the only thing that came up was that he had written some articles for Catholic Family News. And I thought, well, this doesn't seem like this is in being with his character. I don't see any personal animus there that would move him to attack SSPX. So I saw no connections with Opus Dei. But you pointed out that LifeSite does have that connection to Opus Dei, and so that probably informs that. People have asked me, what is this animus that exists between Opus Dei and SSPX? And that is a whole nother show, which I think we should do. We had discussed it with a friend of ours who is in our vast studio audience here, and she has a very good theory on why there is that conflict, at least from why Opus Dei dislikes the SSPX. And I kind of know why SSPX dislikes Opus Dei. But the thing that kind of annoys me is this is all plastered over, and unless you're familiar with the history between those two organizations, this just looks like, oh, the SSPX is filled with predators, and they're aiding and abetting all these predators. And that does not pass the smell test for me. And in this particular article, as you discussed, they're making these allegations that there is this notorious, insatiable pervert who travels about SSPX chapels, who happens to be a layman. And, I think finally he did actually get arrested. I mean, those are the people who deal with lay people as the police, and it was thrown in prison or whatever. Somehow, I'm not sure how this, they did say he had some connection with SSPX, but I think the whole angle behind this is SSPX, through the lockdown, has been gaining momentum. They've got people who are attending their masses because they're the only ones who they have not sworn the virus creed. They haven't taken the oath to Pope Francis, and they've taken an oath to Catholicism, and they've sworn the Nicene Constantinopolitan creed. And so they've been open, and their attendance has, in many places, increased by 50% or 100%, doubled. And I think that the mainstreams have a feeling that we're going to have another virus shutdown. Christmas will be canceled. And so this is a preliminary attack. It is the shock and awe campaign here against SSPX to kind of eliminate the anti-aircraft defenses so that they can come in with a ground strike or whatever against SSPX. But it's because they know they're going to do a shutdown. They do not want you to go to SSPX. You cannot go. First off, you can't receive the sacraments in a diocesan chapel. I don't care if it's Fraternity Institute of Christ the King, Diocesan Latin Mass, Diocesan Novus Ordo. You will not receive the sacraments over the Christmas season. And we don't want you to go to SSPX, so we have to do our best to convince you that it's filled with perverts and criminals, and everybody there is a creep, so you can't go to mass there. And again, as I said, that to me doesn't pass the smell test, and I think you should judge these sorts of things on a one-on-one basis and to decide, what the facts are. I wouldn't trust biased reporting from any organization.
Yeah, and one thing, I mean, you mentioned the article, the guy's a lay guy who's going around to different chapels, and so
the alleged pervert, yeah.
What's the SSPX supposed to do? Say, oh, you can't come, like, do they like communicate with each other? If a guy moves to California, I don't know where he's from, but if he goes to a different church in like a different state, how does any church keep track of any random layperson who's a pervert?
Yeah, John, wait, before you attend Mass at our chapel, we need a background check from you. And then, once you get all your papers in order, then you can attend Mass and receive the sacraments.
And the second thing about the article of Lifesitenews, now, the guy was arrested in 2016, so this is old news. And Church Militant reported on it last year. So Lifesite's basically just taking the same story from Church Militant and recycling it, and maybe they're trying to get like a different tone there, because Church Militant, I mean, Michael Voris and Christine Niles are completely over the top with the SSPX issue. On Twitter, they're completely out of control, and if you saw what they were posting, you'd probably not want to follow them ever again. But I don't know, maybe some people like it. But Lifesite's a little bit more toned down, a little bit more, what do you say, passive-aggressive with some of this type of stuff.
Like, yeah.
And but they're collaborating. These two organizations seem to be collaborating, and I think with Pope Francis giving some faculties to the SSPX, but not all, a lot of people, or some people have suggested that this is intentional by Pope Francis in order to create this division among the conservatives in the church. And that's basically what it is right now. I mean, you have priests reciting the Creed to Pope Francis. You have the virus religion running wild, and this is the topic you choose to, focus on. And Church Militant's chosen to focus on this for a very long time. I don't know. To me, it seems kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like that line from whatever the Shakespeare's play is, that he doth protest too much. There's a disproportionate animus towards SSPX that should not exist and does not exist towards anyone else. I don't. The only logical one can be the Latin Mass, the resistance to Vatican II, and its false doctrines. That's what it seems to me.
So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if churches will be shut down. But if they are shut down, your only option to attend Mass might be the SSPX. I mean, unless you have a secret underground church or a priest that has agreed to invite you to his private Mass, you don't have any other options besides the SSPX, if the SSPX are even an option for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. What would you do?
One more thing. I don't think Pope Francis is behind this particular situation because he did his legalization years ago. And it's really only been in the last year, basically since the virus religion has come out, that we've had these attacks on SSPX. Yes, I know Voris didn't like them, but that was all pre-Pope Francis and his legalization of SSPX, And I think maybe another angle here is that Voris is just declaring all-out war on Francis and his minions, and everything that Francis stands for, including the regularization of the SSPX, Voris has to go in there and try to destroy. I don't know. That's another angle that's possible there. But yeah, as you said, apart from if they do another large-scale shutdown, your choices are going to be SSPX, whether that's indoor or parking lot. Maybe you'll find an underground diocesan type situation. I mean, Sedevacantist could be a possibility. The Eastern Catholic is another one, because they have a completely different hierarchy, and they may or may not do a cancellation as well. So consider them too.
Yeah, I think that'll be regional too. Like, I don't think every diocese would collectively shut down at this point.
They're so big. The Eastern Catholic dioceses are so big. Many of them encompass multiple states.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have a ton of confidence in the Eastern Catholic bishops, but you know they have smaller congregations. A lot of their parishes are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's one thing. And the last thing I want to say is that we are not SSPX. I personally have never been to an SSPX mass. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm just looking at this from an outsider's perspective, and it seems to me like they're being unfairly treated by Church Militant and Lifesitenews. That's just that's just our perspective here. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank
Thanks,
you,
John.
Ryan. We are the laity,
And we will not be silent.